everybody, I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger, and welcome back to another Professional Genealogist Reacts. On today's video, I will be reacting to TESTİ SONUCU, Turk, Kürt, Laz Rum, Arap by Literat. Now, I have no idea how well I pronounced that, but I believe it translates to DNA test result, Turkish, Kurdish, Laz, Greek, and Arab. This video was recently in my recommends, and when I saw it, I was like, that seems really interesting, although it's going to be in Turkish. So hopefully the closed captions will work well enough, but I'm hoping we'll be able to just get by. But I'm really looking forward to see what the results are, because these are a lot of type of results that I don't get a chance to usually see. Because whenever I see people that might have Turkish or Greek or something like that, they're usually people who have come from immigration in the US or UK or elsewhere. So I rarely get to deal with DNA of people who are living in from those areas. And this channel seems to just be a Turkish channel about all sorts of stuff. So it seems like the people that are going to be taking the test, I believe it's 5 of them, are all part of this channel. So very interesting mixture of backgrounds based on what they're telling us. I think the really interesting thing will be to see what kind of differences we see between the Turkish and the Kurdish, the Laz, which I believe is like Turkish Georgian sort of area from what I looked up, then Greek and Arab. You know, what type of European readings are they going to be getting? Are there going to be any North African readings, more for one than the other? I imagine all of them are going to get Western Asian readings and possibly Arabian Peninsula readings. And I think it's pretty likely that we're going to see a good amount of Jewish readings, especially if they end up taking a MyHeritage test. All right, with all of that said, let's just go ahead and jump into the video.
Merhaba.
Merhaba.
Merhaba. İsmi Yaser ben neyim? Suriye.
Ben Kemal Erdoğan, Türk'üm. Az Sabahattin Elmas, az Kürt'üm.
Masena Bostancı, Türkiye Znayan Laziboe.
Melene Vasilis Vingas, İmeromyos.
2013'ün sonunda Türkiye'ye gelmeye karar verdim ve Türkiye'ye geldim.
94 yılında Karadeniz Ereğli'de doğdum ben. Annem Artvin Arhavili, babam Artvin Hopalı. Onlar bir otobüste tanışıp daha sonra evlendikten sonra annemin atamasıyla birlikte Karadeniz Ereğli'ye geliyorlar ve ben orada doğuyorum.
1969 Elazığ, Baskı ilçesi, İştekova köyünde doğdum. 8 kişilik bir ailede büyüdüm. Yaklaşık 12 yılım köyde geçti.
1994'te İstanbul'da Şişli'de doğdum ve İstanbul'da büyüdüm. Ufak bir çekirdek ailemiz var. 5 kişilik bir ablam, bir kardeşim var.
İlkokul son sınıfın 2. sömestrinde Adana'ya taşındık. Benim çünkü anne tarafım Adanalı, baba tarafım İsparta, Yalvaç.
Benim yaşadığım şehirde normalde Halep'te. Orada işte farklı ırklar var. İşte Kürtler var, Ermeniler var. Bir de biz işte normalde evin içinde Arapça konuşuyorduk.
Beni anneannemle dedem büyüttü ve ikisi de Türkçe konuşmakta zorlanıyorlardı. Bu yüzden özellikle bebeklik dönemlerinde o yabancı dile en aşina olacağımız dönemlerde Lazca'ya maruz kaldım ve bu şekilde Lazca'yı öğrenmiş oldum.
Köyde aile içinde Kürtçe konuşuyorduk. Annem Türkçeyi pek fazla bilmez. Genellikle hep Kürtçe konuşuyorduk. Ama abilerimle, ablalarımla Türkçe, Kürtçe karışık. Mesela amcamla Kürtçe konuşuyorduk. Dedemle Kürtçe konuşuyorduk. Yani köyde özellikle bizim yaşlılar Türkçeyi bilmezler.
Evde Rumca konuşuyoruz. Yani Rumca derken tabii Yunanca diliyle aynı. Fakat işte şive vesaire farklılıkları var. Biraz içeri Türk kelimeler de karışmış oluyor sonuç olarak. Kaç yüzyıldır beraber yaşamış 2 tane kültürden bahsediyoruz.
Anne tarafım soyadları Kırımtay, Kırım Türkleri oradan gelip Karadeniz'e, Görele'ye yerleşmişler. Teyze, dayılarım ilk çocuk ve gençlikleri orada geçmiş. Daha sonra lise çağında İstanbul'a gelmiş. Baba tarafımın kökleri Çerkes, bir tarafı Türkmen, İsparta, Yalvaz kazasının Hisarardı köyünden.
Yani Yeniköy'de işte aşağı yukarı bir 130 senedir Yeniköy'deyiz yani. O dönemde göç ettik oradan. Ondan sonra annemin Rum tarafı Marmara Adası var, Gelibolu tarafları var. Onlar biraz daha hani Türk topraklarında daha lokal diyeyim yani.
1800'den gelmeden öncesini hiç biliyor musun?
Ondan öncesi yok zaten. Ondan öncesi muhtemelen belge falan yoktur yani. Hiçbir şey yok. Sakız yani. Sakızlıyız yani biz. oradan bakınca. Yani 1890 öncesini nereden bilebilirsin abi?
Genel olarak şunu anlatıyorlar.
So I'm not 100% sure what he was saying based on the translation, but it kind of sounded like, can't get further back than I guess grandparent, great grandparent, or I don't know. It's hard to exactly tell, but before 1890, as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, maybe that's what he's saying. He can't figure out the family before 1890. But that is a thing that a lot of people say all the time is, oh, well, the documents just aren't there. I can't get back. But a lot of times the documents are there. There obviously are a lot of cases where documents have been destroyed or just weren't kept very well or just whatever, destroyed in fires on accident. But a lot of records do exist all over the place, depending on where he came from. I think he was saying a specific island near Greece or something. I don't know. It's hard to keep track of everything with the translations. It obviously is auto-generated. There wasn't any well done English translations on this, but knowing wherever that island may be, just looking up what archives exist there and what genealogical records might even already be online, you might end up actually being quite surprised.
Bizim gerçekten ben Halepliyim ve dedelerimizin dedeleri yani bayağı eskiden herkes Halepli. Hatta benim soyadım Bunni, geçerli Bunni kahverengi aslında bir anlama geliyor ve bizim dedelerin çok eskiden kahveyle çalışıyorlardı. O yüzden bayağı Halep'te oradan geliyorlar. Fakat şöyle bir bilgi var diye biliyorum. Bizim bir zamanlarda bir babaanne Türkiye'den geldi. Ama hangi babaanne, ne zaman geldi, adı ne hiç bilmiyorum yani.
Atalarımdan bahsetmem gerek.
Okay, so it sounds like he's saying that one side is really Turkish, one side is more Syrian, I guess. So that'll be interesting to see what type of readings he's going to get with that.
De zamanında Lezistan diye bir ülke varmış. Bu Lezistan'dan gelen bu bireylerin oluşturduğu bir topluluk aslında Arhavi çevresinde olan bu konuşlanma. Bazıları Rize'nin Pazar ilçesine gitmiş, bazıları Fındıklı'ya gitmiş, bazıları Hopa'ya gitmiş, dağılmışlar. Bu coğrafyada kalan Lazlar hayatlarını bir şekilde sürdürmüşler asimile olmadan. Tabii ki yine günümüz şartlarında biraz daha azalmış bu kültürü devam ettirme ama zamanında Lezistan'dan gelen atalarımız oralara yerleşerek kendi kültürlerine devam etmişler. Dedemin, babamın babası taraflarında beyaz Rusluk var, Belarusluk. Ancak onun ne zaman olduğu konusunda çok bir fikirleri yok. Sadece hatırladıkları kadarıyla büyük babaanneleri Belarusluymuş.
So if she's getting or she knows about a great grandparent who's Belarusian, I would imagine she's going to get a significant amount of Eastern European, assuming that the family really came from that area for a long time as well. But I think that's going to also just be a general interesting thing to see of how much Eastern European readings each one of them gets.
Yine amcamla öyle bir muhabbet esnasında biz normalde mesela bir Suriye Kürdü ya da Irak Kürdü değiliz dedi. Bizim kökenimiz dedi İran'da gelme. Yani Acem Kürtlerindeniz biz dedi. Ama Acem Kürtleri yani daha öncesinde nasıl olduğunu onu bilmem mümkün değil yani.
Çok kültürlü, farklı kültürlerinden arkadaşlarımızla beraber büyüdük. Ama o zaman 60'ların 70'lerin Türkiye'sinde bunlar böyle çok söz edilmezdi. Yani sen Türksün, sen Kürtsün, sen Arapsın. Böyle bir şeyi biz konuşmazdık arkadaşlarımızla. Sonra büyüdükten sonra onun dedesi Kürtmüş, onunki Arnavutmuş, işte Arnavut Salih'in bilmem nesi. Tabii o yıllar biraz Türkiye'nin siyah beyaz yılları.
En komik yaşadığım şimdiki şey, o da iyi. Sorun değil, hepimiz biriz falan böyle. Onlar bir enteresan oluyor ama yani onun dışında hani Türkiye'de hiçbir sorun yaşamadım ben şimdiye kadar Rum etnik kökenimle.
İnsanlara Laz olduğumu söylediğimde inanmıyorlar. Çünkü Lazları daha büyük burunlu, işte daha bakımsız, daha böyle farklı bir şekilde empoze etmişler kendilerini anladığım kadarıyla. Ancak Lazlar öyle değil. Lazlar çok güzel insanlar.
I've never heard of the Laz people before. I don't know if anyone else has. I'd be really interested to see. Comment below if you have. But I did do a little Google search before I watched the video when I saw it, and it was just like, oh, okay, I guess Georgian, Turkish sort of area. It's an area I really don't know history of super well, Western Asia and stuff like that. Okay, so they are doing My Heritage. I recognize that box.
Benim DNA kitim. Belki de Laz değil mi?
Houston, Texas. Oraya mı gönderecek?
Açıyorum.
It makes a lot of sense they're doing My Heritage because My Heritage has the reputation of being easiest to obtain in Europe and elsewhere. So I guess with, you know, Turkey, part of it's in Europe, part of it's in Asia, if I remember correctly. So it makes sense that these would be the ones they get. And since we do know that it's going to be MyHeritage, my guess is we're going to see some Jewish readings for most of them, if not all of them, and more than likely the Mizrahi readings and or the Sephardi North African readings.
Yaşadığımız coğrafyanın nerelerde olduğunu anlattım. Bakalım biz Türk olarak hangi Türk boyundayız? Nereden? Bu detayları 4 hafta sonra konuşacağız.
Muhtemelen Afrikalı çıkmayacağım ama çok merak ediyorum aslen nereli olduğumu eğer Laz değilsem. O zaman 3-4 hafta sonra görüşmek üzere. Hoşçakalın.
Okay, what are we gonna get? Oh, they have it in
2 ay kadar önce
they
bir
have a wax sealed envelope. That's awesome.
DNA testi yapmıştık. Şimdi onun sonuçlarını açacağım. Çok heyecanlıyım. Dünden beri Eylül'ü bayağı sıkıştırıyorum ama asla söylemiyor. Bunu itiraf etmeliyim. Şimdi açıyorum. Orta Doğu ve Kuzey Afrikalıymışım ben. Çok iyi. Gerçekten.
Okay, we're gonna have to do some translation. A lot of time I can kind of figure things out. I can obviously tell Mizrahi Yehudi, that'd be Mizrahi Jewish, less than 2%. The other Andalusian, Armenistan, Mesopotamian, 32%. Kavkazia. Let's see what that is. Okay, so that's the Caucasus. Okay, so we have South Caucasus, and then I guess the other one might be North Caucasus. Okay, so we have Southern Caucasus, 56%, Northern Caucasus, 11%, Andalusian, Armenistan, Mesopotamian, 32%, and then less than 2% Mizrahi Jewish. Now, she's coming from this Laz ancestry, which it certainly makes sense if we're talking Caucasus Mountains. This is where the Caucasus are. So yeah, so here we've got the Caucasus Mountains. So it certainly seems to make a lot of sense, honestly. I'm hoping maybe they'll show the maps that come with these two. That way we'll also get a little bit better of an idea of what MyHeritage is kind of saying. This is the area that's defining.
%56 Güney Kafkasya, %11 Kuzey Kafkasya, %32 Orta Doğuluyum. Orta Doğu Yahudisiyim. Mizrahi Yahudiyim. Allah Allah.
Sena'nın %100 Kuzey Afrika ve Orta Doğu çıkmış olması çok yüksek bir oran. Ve o kadar videoyu izledim hayatım boyunca. Hiçbirinde böyle net bir sonuç görmemiştim daha önce. O yüzden bayağı şaşırtıcı bir sonuç olduğunu söyleyebilirim.
Burada da bir harita var. Bu yeşil çizginin içerisinde Irak
Okay,
var.
so here we have
Mor
with
çizginin
map.
içerisinde İran var. Ben nasıl Laz oldum anlamadım. Ben Laz değilmişim. Buradan bu...
So I don't know exactly with the history of Nas people, but she's saying I am not Nas, and I'm thinking that maybe she's not understanding that it may not say that she's actually Nas, and I doubt that that's something that they would read. It's going to more deal with a geographic region, and based on the history that I understand, which obviously is very minimal, it's a Turkish Georgian sort of area, and all the readings are like, boom, right there. Caucasus Mountains, Eastern Europe, Western Asia, like all right there. Not even anything really diving that deep into North Africa or anything except for that kind of Middle Eastern reading that covers a lot of what I would still expect for that sort of an area with that the population flows.
Bunu anlıyorum. Yani hiç alakam yokmuş. Gürcistan diyor, tamam ona okey oldum. Güney Kafkasya dediği bölgelerde Gürcistan. Ha böyle bakarsak o zaman çok okey oldum. Güney Kafkasya sarı olan kısmı Gürcistan olarak böyle çizmişler. Batum, Tiflis. Zaten babamın evi Batum sınırında hemen. Şuradaki Irak ve İran var. Hiç oradan olduğumu düşünmemiştim. Yani uzaklık anlamında daha zaman.
I wonder how these results look now with the new MyHeritage update that's been rolling out. Or by the time this video comes out, might have already fully rolled out for everybody. Okay, so largely Kurdish readings. I definitely do not remember what a lot of each of the people said in terms of what their ancestry they were expecting. Big part of it because I was trying to interpret what the translation's supposed to say. So one of the things I expected to be a difficulty with this video.
Şaşırdım. Orta Doğu ve Kuzey Afrika. %99. Anadolu, Ermenistan ve Mezopotamya. %96. Asya,
96%.
Düzce, %3. Asya, %2. Batı Orta Asya, Indus Vadisi, %2. Gerçekte sonuç Kuzey Afrika. Yani hiç beklemediğim %99.
Sabahattin Bey'in %96 Anadolu çıkmış olması çok yüksek bir oran. Fakat çok da şaşırtıcı değil. Etnik kökenine baktığımız zaman yani oralardan çıkmış olması beklenilecek bir konu.
Ama biz tabii biraz İran'daki sonuçta Orta Doğu. Ben İran'da bekliyordum bunu. Yani İran, Acem Kürtlerinde bekliyordum. Çünkü bize anlatılan oydu. Ama sonuçta Orta Doğu'da geliyor bu. Orta Doğu, Kuzey Afrika %99. Şaşırmadım değil yani. Gerçekten
Yeah.
şaşırdım. Yani Afganistan.
So yeah, I guess it makes a lot of sense. It is kind of interesting that he is getting that small percentage of the more Western Asian or Southwest Asian. But at the same time, I guess that shouldn't be too surprising because the regions are very close and I imagine have a lot of population flow between them.
Pakistan arasında yani oradan gerçi sonuçta orada belki İran'dan Türkiye'ye gelmiş olabilir. Yani köken mesela atıyorum Afganistan. Çünkü orada yani en kısa yol haritada gördüğüm yani İran üzerinde. Belki o yüzden daha önce atalarımızda duyduğumuz İran Acem Kürtlerinden gelme demiş olabilirler. Tabii belki onlar da işte artık bu Afganistan gelen kökeni bilmiyorlarmış demek ki. Evet, öbür haritaya da baktığın zaman yani yine Afganistan bölgesinde mesela bu Tacikistan, yine İran bölgesinden Türkiye'ye giriş yapılmış gibi gözüküyor. Beni şaşırtan tek şey Kuzey Afrika'dan gelmemiz. Demek ki yani ondan öncesini bilmiyormuşuz. Hakikaten şu an şok oldum. Yani ben mesela bir İran üzerinde gelmiş olsaydı hiç şaşırmayacaktım. Hiç şaşırmayacaktım. Tamam diyor.
All right, so but they call it, I think, Middle East and North Africa. So yeah, so he's saying, I'm surprised that I'm getting North African, but really he's not. It's just that the overall region that they're defining there is Middle East and North Africa. I'm not going to try to pronounce the Turkish there. But then he's not getting any North African readings. It's all Middle Eastern. So when we saw that map going forward, you can see it's not highlighting anything in North Africa. I mean, the closest that you can get is it looks like that's maybe Jordan, maybe Lebanon, maybe Israel, but it's really like not getting in North Africa at all. So even though that region says North Africa, I think he's getting a little hung up on that terminology, which is an unfortunate thing that does happen with these tests is that, they try to define it as best possible, but sometimes the population groups have such a connection that they need to lump two together in a sort of way, kind of like this. And then people can think, oh, well, I have North African, but he's not really getting any North African readings. He's getting the Middle Eastern readings that are under the heading of Middle Eastern and North Africa. So it'd be the same as someone who's Native American who does a DNA test and they see the reading is, East Asian and Indigenous American, and then all the readings are Indigenous American. Well, they're not getting any East Asian readings, even though it says under that larger heading. So that's what's happening here. Okay, so I think, if I remember correctly, I do think he's the one that has the Greek ancestry and the Turkish ancestry. So he's the one I'm guessing we're probably going to see Balkan readings, possibly Eastern European readings, as well as a lot of these other readings that the others are getting in terms of the Western Asia, the Middle Eastern, things like that.
En son buluşalı 2 ay oldu. Bu sürede DNA'm bile değişmiş olabilir. Bakalım nasıl sonuçlar bizi bekliyor. Kıracağım ben bunu.
Wax seal.
Evet. Evet. Bayağı Avrupa.
Quite
%51
European.
İtalya Yarımadası.
51% Italian.
Bayağı Sicilya mı oluyorum yani ben? İtalyanım ama okey. Avrupa, %81 Avrupa çıkmış. O bayağı yüksek. Bu kadar yüksek olmasını istemiyordum açıkçası. Yani biraz daha karışık olmasını isterdim yani. Yine hani Avrupa yakın bir memleket yani.
It makes a lot of sense with him having both Greek and Turkish ancestry, especially in the sense that if he's Greek on one side and then the other side's Turkish, that Turkish side may be much more Western Turkish versus Eastern Turkish, which is thus likely going to have a much more European bend to it. especially being that parts of Western Turkey are part of Europe, from what I understand. I could be wrong. I know I've seen things saying that it's technically in both, technically more in Asia, but yeah. So certainly makes sense.
Yani hani %81 çıkmasa da olurmuş. Bu çok çok yüksek bir oran. Yani hem şaşırtmadı hem de şaşırttı yani. Çünkü çok yüksek bir oran. Yani çok fazla video izledim ben DNA'da. İlk defa ben böyle bir şey gördüm ya. İtalya'yı beklemiyordum %51. Yani %20 vesaire olur yani o şaşırtmazdı yine. Ama tabii baktığımız zaman hani köken olarak hani sonuçta bu bölgelerde Yunanistan, İtalya, Bizans İmparatorluğu, Roma İmparatorluğu vesaire derken hani çok da şaşırtıcı olmaması lazım yani bu oranın.
One thing to say here is when we're looking at these readings, we can't really tell, is it truly saying that that's Italian origins, or is it really saying maybe some Italian origins and maybe some Greek origins and things like that? Because when it comes to these readings, they are estimations, and because of the difficulty of deciphering population groups, they can sometimes represent things in the wrong way. But when you understand it in the right way, in terms of basically this could mean other possibilities sort of mindset, and considering each one of those possibilities, that's the most helpful in trying to decipher the admixtures, because for the genealogy, the admixture is kind of a starting off point. So for his family story, it makes a lot of sense. But then let's say with his readings, he got like a 10% reading of British Irish. Well, that would stand out a lot based on the area that he knows his family's from. And that would be indicative of, okay, there's probably an ancestry in there that you weren't expecting that's going to be a British-Irish connection, because while there are some historical connections between, you know, Britain and Ireland and the rest of Europe and Turkey and all that, it's not strong enough that we would expect a lot of commonality between DNA. Hopefully that makes sense, but let's continue.
Yunanistan ve Balkanlar %19 bu bu bayağı düşmüş. Ya tam tersi olmasını beklerdim açıkçası yani. İtalyan Yarımadası %51 olup Yunanistan'ın 19 olması çok enteresanmış.
I don't know if this is the case, but I wonder if this is a similarity to what Northwestern Europeans deal with, where you might have only British-Irish ancestry as far as you know, but then you have a large chunk of Scandinavian. And could it be the same thing going on when somebody's Greek? If they take a test, is it possible that a lot of that Greek, or even just, let's say just Balkans in general, anyone from the Balkans does a DNA test, is it a possibility that they're going to end up getting a large amount of Italian, even though they don't really have a large amount of Italian? And based on 51%, that's the equivalent of a parent, so I imagine he would know if one of his parents was truly Italian instead of Greek or Turkish, but more than likely, it's probably he knows his true family. Possible that one of his parents doesn't have the origins he thinks they have. But if it is true what he knows of his family tree, this still does make sense, and that Italian may be representing Greek ancestry and should be better read as Greek or Balkan, but Italian here. And that's why we get these updates. So I wonder, since they took these tests, what are their updates going to be? Because like I said, MyHeritage has done an update that's rolling out as I'm doing this reaction, but by the time this reaction comes out, it may have fully rolled out. And his results may be now that he looks at it and there's no Italian now, and it actually specifies Greek and Balkan and Turkish a bit better. But it's possible that it's very similar to what it was in this video.
İskandinav %10 güzelmiş bu arada. O da yani hiç duymadım ama yıllar önce bize bir mail gelmişti soy ismimizle ilgili. Biri dedi ki bu soy isim Vikinglere bağlanıyor diye bir şey dedi. Çok ilginçtir. Evet.
So the Scandinavian is really interesting because, like I was saying with the British Irish, that kind of stands out. And while I do know that there are connections between Scandinavia and Eastern Europe, and especially with Russia, I think more dealing with Finland than Norway or Sweden or Denmark. I think it still stands out as something that's like not quite expected, and especially at 10%. So assuming that that 10% is representing one recent ancestor and not like a bunch of distant ancestors or some sort of a misreading on what should be Greek or Turkish, 10% would be the equivalent of a great-grandparent. So if he built out his family tree, looked at all of his grandparents' parents, and especially since he has this hint of the surname, looking at his paternal great-grandfather, can he identify where they're from? I don't remember if he's the one that said, you know, I can't trace my family back before 1890, which if that's the case, then it's very possible that he has some sort of Scandinavian ancestry that he just doesn't even know about, and possibly his parents don't even know about, because if his parents really didn't know much about their family, maybe just only about their grandparents, which is not uncommon, then they may not even know, and just a little bit of genealogy work may be enough to solve the case. Also, being that he has this connection of surname, meaning his paternal line, father's father's father's father, and so on, doing a Y-DNA test could actually be very telling if he does have Scandinavian roots on that line.
Öyle bir garip bir şey yaşadık yani. O yüzden acaba İskandinav %10 o mu bilmiyorum. Hiçbir zaman da öğrenemeyeceğiz zaten. Orta Doğu ve Kuzey Afrika %10.
We'll never know anyway. There's ways to know, dude. Like, I'm telling you, you might be able to figure it out with not that much work either. I don't know how available the records are in the areas that your family came from. Being that it's Greeks and Turkey, I know that there are some limitations with what's available, but also the fact that he lives in this area, I assume, then he could possibly travel to the archives or places that may have information that's not available online and may allow him to get just a couple more generations back in his family, and that could be enough. Because for people that are of my generation, which I assume he is, great-grandparents often seem to be born late 1800s, early 1900s. Second great-grandparents born late 1800s, kind of mid-1800s. And then third great-grandparents being kind of mid-early 1800s when they're born. So it's not that far back that he really has to go to really figure out what's going on in terms of does the Scandinavian truly represent something.
Yani o yüzden hani bu Orta Doğu ve Kuzey Afrika açıkçası hiç şaşırtmıyor beni. Kardeşim de aynı şekilde aşırı koyu tenlidir. Muhtemelen bunlar Orta Doğu, Anadolu, Ermenistan ve Mezopotamya.
Yeah, it's all Middle Eastern again. None of the North African, even though it says it in the title. I don't know if he mentioned the less than 1% Baltic, not that it matters much. Makes a lot of sense. There is a decent correlation between the Balkans and the Baltic states. So that certainly adds up. I think it's pretty obvious that this Middle Eastern is going to be representative of his Turkish ancestry more than likely, as opposed to the Italian ancestry. And being that his Greek ancestry was one parent, and that he is getting that Italian at 51%, it does make me wonder, now that I'm thinking about it, is one of his parents coming from a family that went from Italy to Greece not that long ago, and even though that his parent came from Greece, and maybe even all of his grandparents lived in Greece, or were even born there, but maybe all of his great-grandparents were born in Italy on that side, and then that's why he's getting all that Italian instead. So just something that popped into my mind. And then last thing to say, because I know he's about to talk about it, the Mizrahi Jewish at less than 1%, which I think that's probably just going to be a reading that's typical of a lot of people in these areas, because there were so many Jews over the many years who did convert or assimilate to other communities, and thus that DNA would get into these other communities, and so it's not uncommon to get a reading of Mizrahi Jewish.
%8. Bu Kuzey Levantlar, Levantenlerden mi? Levant.
Suriye, Lübnan ve Kıbrıs.
İlk defa duydum yani böyle bir bölgenin böyle bir ismi olduğunu. Bir de Orta Doğu Yahudiliği varmış. %1'den azmış ama bayağı ufak bir oranmış ya. Ben bayağı %81 Avrupalıymışım. Yani hiç yayılmamışız yani. O beni biraz üzdü. Biraz yayılmak istiyordum ben.
İskandinavya'dan gelmiş olması yine bende bir merak uyandırdı. Acaba nasıl geldiler diye. Gerçekten gemilerle mi geldiler, trenle mi geldiler, nasıl bir yolculuk oldu? Bunları ben çok merak edip ailemde neler yapılmış araştırmak isterdim mesela.
Yeah, that's actually something that you might be able to figure out, especially being that he's looking at a 10% Scandinavian. So like I said, a great-grandparent most likely. So a great-grandparent, if you can find the records on them, you might be able to find out exactly where they came from. You might be able to find immigration records. And then I don't know about naturalization records in Turkey or Greece or anything like that, but that's also a possibility of something that could uncover that story. So this is really where the benefit of admixtures comes in for genealogy, is not looking at these and saying, okay, well, he has this much percentage of that, so it has to be like that, and he has this much percentage of that, has to be like that. The way that we interpret these is we look at them and say, okay, what makes sense with the area that we're expecting them to come from, and what is an outlier to that that could be indicative of something we weren't expecting. So the Scandinavian is a perfect example, whereas we've seen with the others, with their results, it's been all much more very concise in a specific region. And when that happens, especially for regions that the population flows tons and tons and tons, which I really think that's probably the case when you're talking about the Middle East, Western Asia, and especially talking about, you know, all of the empires and the caliphates and everything that's ruled over those areas. They've been some pretty big empires and such. So yeah.
Yaklaşık 2 ay önce bir DNA testi yaptık ve sonuçları bekledik. Çok heyecanla bekliyorum bu arada. Herkese anlatıyorum, bahsediyorum. İşte nerelere çıkacağım falan. Şu anda geldim, çok heyecanla geldim. Bir bakalım nerede çıkacağım. Orta Doğu ve Kuzey Afrika. %95. Aynen. Anadolu, Ermenistan ve...
Okay, so all under the heading of Middle Eastern and North African, but notice that he's getting a much larger mix of everything. And he's getting some Sephardi Jewish.
Mezopotamya? Neresi burası?
Güneydoğu.
Tamam, nerede olduğumu bilmiyorum ama oralardayım. %63. Kuzey Levant, %21. Sefard Yahudisi, %9. Arabistan, Arap Yarımadası, %2'den daha az. Yemenli Yahudi, %1. Aslında asıl Araplar Yemenli oluyorlar. Mizrahi Yahudi, %1'den daha az. Avrupa, %3. Doğu Avrupa,
So
Batı Slav.
3% Eastern Europe, Western Slavic. Interesting. I think it's not too unexpected. I think it is interesting that of all of them to get that reading, because I was expecting some of them to get it. He's the only one, and it is kind of just interesting that it wasn't as common as I was kind of expecting it to be. Same thing with the Balkans as well. I think I was expecting a lot more of those to be popping in, but very, very interesting to be able to kind of see what these results are for people in these areas.
%3. Afrika'nın boynuzu.
And the Eastern African.
Eritrea.
So he's less than 1% Eastern African, and with the readings he was getting before from the Arabian Peninsula, I think that kind of makes sense that that's all right there, because basically that goes between the Horn of Africa and the Arabian Peninsula, and so there's obviously a lot of population flow between those, so I think that makes sense that he's the one to be getting Arabian Peninsula readings. I don't think I saw it for anybody else. So he would also be getting that very, very small trace result of Eastern European, which might not even actually, or sorry, not Eastern European, Eastern African, but might not even be actually Eastern African. Could just be a misread of Arabian sort of ancestry as Eastern African.
Diyoruz. Kuzey Etiyopya ve Somali %1. Asya %1. O da Batı Orta Asya. Afganistan ve Kuzey Pakistan %1. Amerika %1. Kızılderili. Amazon %1.
Now that's interesting. Now the 1% Amazon, I think that's probably going to be a misread. That seems very, very odd. Now, it might not be. It could be true. And it is less than 1%. So if it is true, we're looking at really far back. So I would say at best, maybe a third great grandparent, but more than likely like a fourth, fifth, or sixth great grandparent. And just to give an idea, that would be looking at an ancestor who was living and died probably sometime within a range of like late 1600s to dying maybe early 1800s. But more than likely that person, if he truly has a Native American ancestor that somehow came over and mixed in with his family, that would be someone that came over in the 1700s. So something that's much more difficult to figure out than what we were talking about before with that 10% Scandinavian. But I would say he's definitely got the most interesting results out of everybody, and I think we'll talk about his Jewish results a bit more in a second, because I do want to see if he has anything to say about it.
Hepinizin akrabayım ben şu an. Haritaya bakalım, bütün harita. Hiçbir şey yapmanıza gerek yok.
Kültürlü bir yer Suriye ve oradan bütün dünyaya dağıldı Suriyeliler. Yani bu yakın zamanda değil, daha da öncesinden Filistin sorunun kökünde de dünyanın her tarafında var Suriyeliler. Uluslararası ticarette de varlar. Yani çok şaşırmadım. Dünyaya dağılmış bir ülkedir Suriye geçmişten beri. Yani yeni bir şey değil.
Aslında evet, gerçekten Brezilya'da da var. Brezilya var, Amerika var, İspanya, Polonya. Tabii yüzdeler farklı da. Ama asıl
I don't know. I feel like maybe some of these I missed. Let's see. Okay, where are we at? 1958.
Amerika var, İspanya, Polonya.
So I'm looking at this, and some of these I don't remember seeing in the results. Like I don't remember seeing any Iberian, and I do remember seeing the Western Slavic, Eastern European, which Poland, basically Poland, Germany, sort of Austria, Hungary, kind of those Central European. And then I don't remember North American. I remember the Amazonian, I think it was. So Amazonian being the South American, but maybe I guess it was just a general reading of Indigenous American-ish, one of these two. Now, even though we didn't see the Spain reading, so I don't quite know what the percentage was, because I even just went back and maybe it's just a loss in translation sort of thing. It certainly makes sense with that large amount of Sephardic Jewish he was getting and the small percentage of Mizrahi. And since he hasn't said anything now, I guess I'll talk about that, where his reading was about 9% plus the Mizrahi Jewish, and then let's just add that Iberian to add in because it would make sense that it would be a Sephardi connection for him. But there were a lot of Sephardic Jews in these areas, in Turkey and Greece and all of these major cities in those areas as well. So if that's going to be the reading he would get, it certainly makes sense. And at 9% for the Sephardi, about 1% for the Mizrahi, and I'm assuming less than 1% for the Spanish because we didn't really even see it. So about 11% or so. So right within the range of a great-grandparent. And just like I said before, with that 10% Scandinavian, same thing here, where if he builds out his family tree, looks at all of his grandparents' parents, all of his great-grandparents, and then looks into their ancestry, he may be able to find one who is fully Jewish and maybe even finds a fully Sephardic Jewish ancestor. Now, I should say that there is a lot of difficulty in deciphering between the different Jewish groups, so Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Mizrahi, and while MyHeritage does try it, there has been a lot of issues that people have seen with it, and we don't have a white paper to be able to see how reliable it is based on their own statistical analyses. So we don't quite know how reliable it could be, and it's very possible that even though it says Sephardi, it could be maybe an Ashkenazi ancestry, might be a Mizrahi ancestry, or it could be a mixture of things, not too dissimilar to what it says. But you never want to take it just as straight fact. But he's definitely got the most interesting results out of everybody.
Ama asıl en çok evet geldiğim yerden Orta Doğu, sadece Orta Doğu'dan geldim. Kuzey Afrika'dan gelmedim. Yani Suriye'de Asya sayılır. Kuzey Afrika olarak sayılmıyor. Çok şaşırdım.
Yesel'in Kuzey Amerikalı ve Güney Amerikalı çıkmış olması en şaşırtıcı sonuç. Hiç beklenmedik bir sonuç bence. Yani hiçbirimizin oradan çıkması beklenilmiyor zaten doğal olarak.
Yani bu kadar beklemiyordum. Hakikaten hatta ilk konuşmada bizim evimizde böyle bir tablo var. İşte aile ağacı söylüyoruz. Herkes Halepli yani. Öyle dışarıda sağ sol bile kimse yok. Sadece bizim babaannemizin babaannesi galiba Türktü. Onu diyebiliyorum. Onun dışında Amerikalı, yok Afrikalı, Avrupalı.
Açılan sandık sayısı 1. Orta Doğu ve Kuzey Afrika %87. Hepimiz Afrika'dan geldik. Ve Orta Doğu pardon yani %87. %33.
So yeah, so we've got that 33% with the Mesopotamian, 10% Levant, 8% Sephardi Jewish. So his readings seem very similar actually to the last guy's. Then we have this, I'm trying to remember if that was Northern or Southern Caucasus, one of the Caucasus readings. And then it looks like we've got a pretty decent amount of European for him.
Anadolu, Ermenistan ve Mezopotamya. Evet, Mezopotamya çocuğuyuz. Kuzey Levant %10. Biraz da İstanbul'u bulaştı. Sefaret Yahudisi %8. Bu çok iyi haber. Bu kardeşimden biraz daha fazla çıktı. Bunu koz olarak kullanabilirim. Kafkasya köklerimiz zaten. Biraz Çerkez, biraz Kırım Türküyüz. %36. Bunu bekliyordum. Avrupa %12. İstanbul doğumluyuz. Oradan mı geldi geçti acaba? Güney Avrupa demiş. Yunanistan, Balkanlar %11.
Yeah,
Batı
so
Avrupa.
Greek Balkan 11% makes a lot of sense if he's Turkish, obviously, because I would imagine that there's a lot of Western Turks that may have a lot of correlating DNA to Greece and the Balkans. So 11%, assuming it's coming all from one ancestor instead of multiple distant ancestors. Once again, looking at about a great-grandparent.
Vay canına. İrlanda %2. Bunu beklemiyordum. İyi. Türkler İrlandalıları sever. İngilizlerden çok çeken iki ulus vardır. Biri İrlandalılar, biri biz, onun için yani İrlandalılarla...
Okay, I think I just missed that. So he got, okay, less than 2% Irish. That is very interesting. Kind of like I was saying before with the British and Irish. If we get anything like that, that does stand out. Less than 2%, it is a trace result, not meaning it's a false result, just meaning that our confidence is low on whether or not it's a true result or a false result. But that is interesting, and at less than 2%, we would be looking at pretty distant out there, you know, third, fourth grandparent sort of thing, but also possibly a bit further out.
Bunu beklemiyordum. İyi. Türkler İrlandalıları sever. Asya %2. Demek ki oradan gelenlerden değiliz. Orta Sibirya, Orta Doğu ve Sibirya %2. Arktik. Bu nedir?
Eskimo.
%1. Arktik'i ne diye sınıflandırıyorum? Bunu yeni diyorum. %1'de eski.
I think the Eskimo were basically dealing with what we had before with the indigenous American, in the sense that it's probably just coming from the fact that he has these Asian readings and it's a misread of that. But it could possibly be an actual Native American Eskimo ancestor, but I'm doubting it.
Eskimo çıktık ya, bu da enteresan.
Kemal Bey'in sonuçlarında en şaşırtıcı olan Arktik sonucu kesinlikle. Yani çünkü böyle sonuçta yine beklenecek bir sonuç değil.
Haritaya bakılırsa bizde de bir Avrupa bağlantısı görünüyor. Yani Yaser yalnız değil. Ben de bir Kuzey Amerika görünüyor. Biz yani Türkler eskiden şamandık biliyorsunuz.
But he's the one that's getting the strongest East Russian Asian readings. I don't know what did they define that as? Okay, so they're defining it as Siberian.
Yalnız değil. Ben de bir Kuzey Amerika görünüyor. Biz yani Türkler eskiden şamandık biliyorsunuz. Hintliler Bering Boğazı'ndan yani bir bağlantı kurarlar ya. İşte Kızılderililerin aslı, onlar da şaman olduğu için Hindistan'dan gidenler yaşadı. Türk hatta.
Aslında şu DNA testlerine baktığınız zaman gerçekten çok güzel bir şey. Mesela farklı kökenlerde, farklı şeylerde, aynı topraklar üzerinde, aynı kültürle, yani farklı kültürlerle yaşamak güzel bir şey. Söylenildi. Önemli olan insan olmak, önemli olan iyi insan olmak.
Okay, that was a very interesting video. Very difficult to decipher some parts. I got a little worried there in the beginning because some of the closed captioning stuff didn't seem to be populating for some of it, which it didn't seem to have that issue throughout most of the video until the end. But I think it's really cool to be able to see a group of people that you don't usually see doing these DNA tests and making a video about it, and at least one where, you know, English speakers can understand. Obviously, they didn't make it so English speakers could understand it, but at least with the closed caption, we got by. But I think it all ended up being pretty typical of what I would expect for people coming from these sorts of Turkish, Greek, Kurdish ancestries, you know, all being sort of in that Eastern Europe, Balkans meets Western Asia, Caucasus, and you know, the Levant and everything like that. I think the only thing I was surprised about was how little bit of a North African reading there was for most of them, even though technically they all had that reading of Middle Eastern and North African, but I don't think any of them really had any actual North African readings, but we did have some East African readings. But it was especially interesting just in the sense that it seemed like at least 3 of them have some sort of interesting great-grandparent thing going on. That last guy seemed to have that great-grandparent coming from Europe somewhere, possibly. Although, obviously, with it, I think it was a Balkan reading. Very well could just be, you know, coming from Turkish ancestry that has a very strong correlation to European. But, you know, if you looked at the family for hundreds of years, they lived in Turkey. But then at the same time, he also had that reading that indicated a possible great-grandparent of Sephardi ancestry, although he did say that he had a brother who had gotten less than he did, which might be indicative that maybe it's not quite as much a great-grandparent and maybe more a second great-grandparent, because the amount of DNA you inherit from your ancestors is random, because the recombination of DNA is random. And so you may have it where you have one great-grandparent that you inherit 15% of your DNA from, and another great-grandparent where you inherit only 10% of your DNA. But then the same thing with a second great-grandparent. Usually you get about a 6.25% reading. So with a second great-grandparent, you might have one where you get 4% or 5% from them, and then another second great-grandparent where you're getting 8% or 9% from them. I think the only thing that would really add to this video, which would probably add to a lot of these other videos, would be to see what were their matches looking like on MyHeritage. I don't know how well represented they are in MyHeritage, even though MyHeritage, like I said in the beginning, has the best distribution throughout the non-English speaking world, largely Europe especially. So I would imagine that if they looked at their matches, they might see some good significant matches. But that's what I'd be curious about, is how many matches do they have and how quality are those matches? You know, do they have a lot of matches that are just really, really distant and share very little bits of DNA with them? Or do they have a pretty good amount, you know, maybe a page or two of matches where they actually are related, maybe within a, you know, third, fourth, fifth cousin sort of range. Basically having like 1% DNA or higher, or what would be about 70 centimorgans or higher. And then of course, I guess it would be interesting to see their actual family trees and what would they be expecting to actually get based on that, and not just their generalizations of their family history. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to check out more reactions just like this, be sure to check out this one of mine right here. Thank you to my Patreon patrons and YouTube members.